Put a smile on your face. When you
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back. It is 7:17 a.m. this morning. Welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, viewers, in this segment, we're happy to have on set with us Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin. And you know, there's always so much to talk about and not enough time with you. Good morning and welcome on set.
Good morning, Julian. Good morning, viewers.
All right, so as we get the conversation started this morning, we want to start on the topic in the first instance, the Sargassum Relief Initiative. Give us a little insight into that initiative and its happenings, particularly now within the Tobago Speaks.
Okay, well, the last influx of Sargassum we had to deal with it hands-on, meaning get contractors with heavy equipment to remove the Sargassum off the beach. Because as you would see over the years, we have had so much of it that, you know, a shovel and a bucket can't really assist, you know, those persons who want to utilize the beaches, tourists who occupy the hotels. They are the ones that have been complaining, and therefore we had to sort of do an emergency relief by removing all the Sargassum, particularly at Magdalena, right? There was Sargassum right up to the swimming pool. So you would imagine that, you know, with that foul smell and you know, all the wildlife being trapped inside of it, that we really had to bail them out in order to protect the tourism product that they are offering there.
Tell us a little bit. We know for a number of years this has kind of confronted us head-on. What are the plans or projections in relation to dealing with this? We've had conversations with, you know, Sean down there at the recycling facility in Shore Park. What are some of the plans in terms of really trying to see, because it's going to keep coming apparently, especially at this time, in terms of how we are able to better utilize and to treat with it as the times and the cycles come around?
Well, last time the project implementation unit, they did an excellent job at controlling the Sargassum influx. When I say controlling, at least removing it from the beachfront. But our challenge continues to be funding. And we had to basically remove the Sargassum, and you know, the Chief Secretary, of course, would have assisted us in terms of covering the cost of removal. And this time around, the ambassador from Japan, they would have, along with UNDP, they would have asked, well, trying to assist us in getting the funding in order to remove the Sargassum. So that would involve purchasing dump trucks and conveyor belts and, you know, all those equipment so that we could remove it, right? I know that a lot of people believe that you can use the Sargassum for agriculture, but you cannot use it in the state that it is in. Right, it will be very toxic to the plants and to yourself, right? It's definitely, you cannot use it in its current form. So it has to be processed and treated in order to be utilized for any other process.
A very important point, because that was my next question, in terms of a lot of people seem to be indicating that it could be used. So what you're saying clearly is it's not advised.
No, it's not advised. And that is why we did not send the Sargassum to farmers or anybody that requested it, because we didn't want to be responsible for, you know, putting toxins into people's bodies. So we have been advising persons that you cannot use it in its current form. It must be treated in order to be utilized in agriculture.
All right. Any hopes and projections in that area would eventually be able, whether it be to acquire the equipment, the necessary expertise, and so on, so that we can find some possible ways, and even the necessary research and going out there if you have to, connecting with other agencies and entities along with your technical officers to see what the possibilities are out there in the world at large?
Well, it's interesting. I'll tell you something. We had, you know, several committees last year, and one of them was farm technology. And Melanie Trim and Alicia James, they were on one of the committees there. And they would have taken some of us to UTT in order to see what are the possibilities of Sargassum seaweed. And so far, it's looking like charcoal production. Right? We saw equipment there that could do the conversion, but a very small scale, of course. But you know, we're starting to look at what is possible out there, and then we'll be able to utilize the Sargassum in a meaningful way and a safe way, most importantly.
All right, so the research is being done. But in the meanwhile, are you giving the assurances that the necessary teams will be out, whether it be between your division, works, wherever has the resources, because we know quite a few equipment would have been purchased to ensure that it doesn't become a burden on the residents in the respective areas?
Yes, of course. We will mobilize those departments. Last time we had project implementation unit accompanied by forestry. Ideally, we should have had fisheries and Department of Environment coming on board. However, we will be mobilizing persons to ensure that we create the safe environment on our beaches, and of course for the the wildlife that is within that vicinity there that often get caught up in the sargassum seaweed.
All right. We're heading on into the next area where there's the Marine Resilience Initiative.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this initiative.
All right. So that initiative, it was launched, I think it's a community symposium. So IMA, that's the Institute of Marine Affairs, they launched the 8th community symposium. And that was basically to assist Tobagonians with the necessary research that is required to manage our marine biodiversity and marine resources in an effective way, right? And they would have rolled out several presentations, coastal protection, mangroves, seagrass beds, coral spawning, coral reefs. So they gave several presentations, all backed by research. And it is hoped that all the stakeholders, those persons utilizing the resources, the marine biodiversity and the resources, that they would be able to utilize their resources in a way that it would maintain the integrity and protect it for future generations.
All right. So for us, when we're looking at marine here, we're speaking just to give us a broader perspective for the benefit of those who are not familiar. This marine initiative is speaking more to marine life in terms of how we preserve and so on.
Correct. That's the Boca Reef area, right. Bonaccord Lagoon, right, and of course the UNESCO Man and Biosphere area there in the northeast.
Right. As you speak to Tobago as well, tell us a little bit about that in the context of, I know the Marine Park would have been one of those things,
yes.
Becoming very crucial to us and clear, demarcation in terms of the species and so on. What has the progress been with that area when we speak broadly about this marine initiative?
Okay, so I would describe it as a work in progress. IMA is a key partner with us, and the pillars they are focusing on is ocean stewardship. And I said earlier that they are focusing on those stakeholders and those persons that utilize the resources. So they have been mobilizing the divers, the tour operators, fishermen, right? So they are involving them in the project. And of course, protecting the marine biodiversity and, towards building ocean resilience. So that is what they have been focusing on, the 3 pillars. And they're involving Tobagonians in the process so that we can manage in an informed way, right? I think that IMA should be applauded highly. I've been to their research institute in Trinidad, and I'm very impressed with the quality of work that they have presented over the years. So I think that they should be applauded for coming, into our space and assisting us with the necessary research needed in order for us to protect what we utilize in order for us to make an income. So all those fishermen, the tour operators, we need the science in order to go forward to manage our resources effectively.
So you're saying, coming out of this initiative, the relationship that has been developed with the IME, that we're certainly going to look forward down the road to some clear defining policies and action that will lead to, in a beneficial way in terms of our marine?
Correct. Recently, they acquired a space at Pigeon Point, so they will be setting up a research field station, a marine field station. So they will have a presence in Tobago, and they will continue to monitor, pollution, ensure that the water is safe for bathing and all these things, coastal protection. So they are going to continue providing the necessary research so that we can make informed decisions, both the Tobago House of Assembly and the stakeholders of the resources around the marine space.
All right. Any additional information you would care to share with us, particularly on those 2 initiatives that we may not have covered just yet before we move on to the next area, both the Sargassum Seaweed Initiative and the Marine Initiative? Any additional information you'd like to share?
Well, I'm grateful that Tobago would be receiving money. I think it's about $12 million thereabout for among the 5 countries that have been earmarked for assistance with the Sargassum seaweed. So it would be Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts Nevis. So we should feel privileged to have been selected as one of those countries that would receive assistance. And of course, you know, this whole sargassum thing is all about nutrients, right? Nutrients being leaked in the ocean. And that's why you have all these blooms. Yeah, so we have to be mindful that what we do on land affects the marine, you know, the wildlife, the marine resources out there. So we have to be particularly careful, not only of contributing to climate change, but how we, you know, we view our existence here in this whole, in the world, right? We have to understand that what we do, yeah? And, you know, when I talk about it, sometimes I look at, you know, how we manage our waste on the island. And I know this is, I'll digress a bit, but sometimes you look at, you know, those bins that we provide, those community bins, and then sometimes, you know, you would pass by and you would see people just throwing anything at the side of the bins. Look at the Gibson Jetty, for example. Sometimes you pick up old fridge and stove and all sorts of things, and that is not what is supposed to happen. Those sort of waste supposed to be taken to the dump. But people continue to just dump indiscriminately, and they don't think about how it impacts, you know, nature itself, and in turn how it affects us. Yeah, so we have to pay particular attention of what we do on our little island called Tobago.
All right, excellent. And you know, you touched on that area, and I had to get a quick update. The Little Tobago, we know that there would have been the consultations that took place, and looking at the consideration of realistically putting a fee so that it contributes in some way. We know it's not going to cover the cost, but it contributes in some way to help offsetting costs, and we get to that point in Tobago where we recognize we've got to contribute to the development of our said island and take that responsibility, even if it means visitors are paying and our locals paying a lower fee. Tell us about the progress since the consultations that took place regarding Little Tobago.
Okay, so far they have been building a presentation for the residents at Speyside and environs, and they're going to continue to work towards coming to let's say, coming to an agreement on the way forward in terms of managing that space, that Little Tobago product that we offer to persons who frequently visit there. So yeah, so they are continuing to build on the presentation to go back to the stakeholders and say, look, this is what you contributed to, and if this is what we want in order to go forward. Yes.
All right, excellent. We got some photos coming up on screen, and I say photos, and Secretary's eyes gets open wide here. This weekend, you would have had the Mainridge Forest Fitness Challenge that took place, I think it was on Saturday. When your colleague was on, I know they gave a commitment for you in terms of, tell us a little bit about how that experience was, because I see that you were all out in the activities as well. Photos courtesy the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development.
Okay. All right. So we had 240 persons registering for the 5K, the 15K, and the 20K, which were the cyclists. Right? The turnout was pretty good. Outside of those that registered, we had over 300 people participating, because there were people who just came to walk. They didn't really want a prize, but we still gave them medals, because as you could see, the medals, you know, it's a commemorative piece. It's something that you would want to take and say, look, I covered that distance. What was shocking to me is that a lot of persons covered that entire distance from Sid Gray to Bloody Bay in just over 1 hour. I felt that was amazing.
Wow.
Right? And, you know, generally persons felt that it was a challenge indeed, and we should have it annually. So that was the general
and this was the second execution.
The second execution.
How would you make the comparative between when it started last year in 2022, you know, again, during what would have still been, you know, a core part of the pandemic, and now in 2023?
In well, the last, I think it was 2019 or 2020.
Right.
Right. We had about 166 persons registering and participating. And of course, you'd have minor teething problems, yes. So, I would say we had more persons coming from Trinidad this time around. So I think that, as we continue to market it, because we're having the virtual run for 2 months, and I'm seeing more persons outside of Tobago appreciating what we have in Tobago. So what I would like the next time around is for all Tobagonians to come out. You don't have to walk it, because I know certainly I can't cover it in 1 hour.
But you did your best.
Yes, but the experience, just going across the main ridge, experiencing that microclimate, the nature in itself, it's totally different from all other areas in Tobago. It's scenic. I mean, in a different way. I think just having the experience of the main ridge is worth it. So I believe that next time around, more persons could come out. We had BeesNet, representatives from BeesNet. They are the ones that they're currently looking at pollinators on the island, and how we manage our pollinators. We had the Wildlife Association, we had the Tour Guide Association. So all of them came together and presented whatever product at the end of the race. And all the Trinidadians, persons from Tobago, persons from my constituency, they also came out and they said, this is an excellent initiative, keep going, because this is something that is worth selling to the entire world.
And I think it's a strategic way as well to get persons to really be able to see and to enjoy and to experience what we have right here in Tobago. Just before we wrap as well this morning, we have heard the issues being raised through minority leader, Kelvin Charles. Kelvin Morris, sorry. I'm renaming the minority leader here. My apologies. Kelvin Morris raising concerns in relation to the challenge with regards to workers being able to be paid on time, etc. And making reference to the fact that a conversation took place with you, where as secretary you indicated apparently that there were some challenges in relation to the vote that is supposed to meet that commitment to make payments. How do you respond to that?
Well, there isn't a line item for the development workers. Actually, what happens whenever planning sends money, and I like to describe it as drip, drip, because sometimes in the quarter you get $100,000 and all these things, right? You have to actually pull money from different areas to pay workers. And under development, for the entire fiscal, I get about 24.7 million, thereabout. And out of that 24.7, 23 million just for wages. But you don't get that money one time. That is the problem. You get it drip by drip, because development, you're actually supposed to finish a project and then get paid for it. Development, it wasn't meant for workers, it was actually meant for development work. But what the previous administration did, they hired workers under development, and the workers expected, okay, since I'm being employed, then I'm supposed to get paid every fortnight. But planning, the Ministry of Planning, they don't send the money every fortnight or before the fortnight begins. They don't. They actually send money in part every quarter throughout the fiscal, so that we can pay off for our development projects. So we wouldn't have the funding upfront, and that is why we would have worked, continuously, because last year we fixed some of the workers because we don't have all the funding just yet. We don't have the allocation, all the funding. So we started to fix workers. So I sure you recall, we have reforestation workers, for example. I know that's under reforestation, but we have looked at the problems and tried to fix it so that we don't have, those wage issues all the time. We have looked at different persons under development, but we just don't have the entire allocation. So some workers would be affected until we resolve that problem. And what I did, I put together a team from within the department, in the division, sorry, and I send them to planning and budgets and finance, and they have been working together in order to see how we can fix the problem. So it's a work in progress, right? We have done everything in the division so far, so it's just the Ministry of Planning to send the money to us, right? So I hope that, I know I'm speaking quickly, but it's just that I'm saying development money is meant for development work. But what they did is hired persons under development so that, they could just,
So you say ultimately that, so is it that it's going to continue like this, or you don't have much choices in terms of making the adjustment from development to recurrent?
Right. So we do have the allocation. That's the problem. And, but persons from budgets, finance, and my division, they have done what they need to do in order to present the information to the Ministry of Planning so that they understand that it is not development in the correct sense. It is actually workers getting paid under development so that they can send money in advance so that they can be paid. Yeah? Right? So that is one mechanism, yes.
So part of that solution would be getting the necessary funding ahead of time. Do you anticipate that will happen?
Nobody likes to hear bad news.
I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question realistically, in the context of we're operating Trinidad and Tobago. We know that by law there's supposed to be certain movement of funds within particular timeframes, etc. Whether it be development, recurrent, and Tobago's entitlement. Do you anticipate that's going to find a solution, or there may be the need to find some kind of internal solution here at the level of the teacher? Because hands down, when it comes to people's pay, they're not concerned with whatever method the former or the current administration use. They just want to know that they're going to get paid.
They aren't. But as I said, finance and planning, they are the ones to, to look internally and see how best we can adjust funds. I mean, we had to understand that, the divisions, they receive funding, to do different things. And, once you utilize that funding, as I said, if you utilize development money instead of using it for development, and, then we would now have to strategize as to how to, convince central government that this money is not for development really, but it's really to pay wages. Yeah. So it's something that the THA has to look at and correct. But I don't think that, as a caring government, that we in any way would try, just sit by and not look at the issue and try to treat with it. I know people are impatient in this space, but it's not something overnight that could happen. It's dependent upon different, different government bodies in order to get the approvals and to send the allocation and all of that. But it's something that I'm on top of. I don't see that, that Ms. Pantin will just sit by and not pursue and continue, because the team is there and they have been liaising with all the necessary persons.
All right. So ultimately, what I'm getting is that it's not exclusively a THA matter, but it also involves the players, which is also connected with central government,
yes,
to be able to determine how this is being treated within the final analysis.
Yes, without breaking any financial rules, and so we have to follow different guidelines as well. But I don't anticipate that anybody would just sit by and let it continue. The development. We have development workers, not only in my division, you have development workers across other divisions, in works, for example. So it is not specific to my division. And that is why sometimes you'll hear other divisions having issues with development workers. It's because of the same thing. Development money was made for development, right? But central government not seeing it as wages for workers, they're seeing it as projects. So they send the money after the project has been completed. And that's the challenge.
Very, very, very interesting indeed. All right. Just before we wrap this morning's interview, any other things you would want to provide an update on in terms of, very quickly as we wrap? Because I know your division, and there are probably about 5 other areas that I'd like to touch on. But my director won't allow because time doesn't permit. But very quickly, in closing, anything else you'd like to highlight? I
like to thank all those who have worked alongside me to ensure that I understand all the issues when I assumed office, and all those that continue to work with me in order to see that agriculture, remains relevant in the space, that we give a facelift to agriculture. Agriculture has always been seen as punishment. Long time they send you outside to do, but now we are looking at agriculture as a science and a business. And 1 year and a couple of months, I believe that staff, persons in the community, that they have volunteered. I think that we are doing a good job volunteering our services, sometimes for free or late at night, to ensure that agriculture remains relevant in the Tobago space. Because I really and truly believe that we could excel, and that is my mission. And when I say agriculture, I don't mean just agriculture, but environment, energy, and all those portfolios under my division. That we come together and really show Tobago that this is our Tobago, and we can work together and do meaningful projects across this space.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Secretary Nathisha Charles-Pantin, joining us on set here this morning. Yes, folks, and the division has so many things happening at once. In fact, we're even on the live scene, Big Up Home Gardening. We didn't even have time to talk about that this morning. And certainly one of our viewers saying the main range at 20K was gruesome, but so worth it. I love Tobago. Really good feedback here indeed, as you continue to make efforts within the division of food security, natural resources, the environment, and sustainable development. Yes, folks, one of those hefty divisions that continues to be managed, and we continue to look forward to the outcomes coming to us. Thank you very much again, Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin. Viewers, at this point, we want to remind you, Sydney Beauty Salon and Fashion. They've got a sale on their products, wedding accessories, makeup, eyelashes, wigs, weaves, braids, and so much more. Contact number 799-0661. And they're located at lot number 1, Smithfield Plaza. And that's after JG's. And the sale runs from Monday, April 3rd from 10 a.m. That's Monday, April 3rd from 10 a.m. So we're reminding persons, Cindy's Beauty Salon and Fashion. Connect with them from 10 a.m. this morning for their sale on products taking place. Viewers, we want to thank you so much for the continued love and support, and for most importantly, continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show as we come here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Once again, we remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.